Hey everyone, I'm Tom and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about my reading plans for the month of September. And September has a bunch of new releases that I'm super excited for. This was probably the most excited I've been for like a really well laid out TBR in a little while now. And so we're going to start with what I am 100% going to read. And then at the end, I'll mention a few other things that might get thrown in there as we go, which does happen sometimes. I think last month I read like one or two extras from that maybe we'll see list. So that's always really exciting. And let's start off with my favorite new author. I mean, everything they have written that I've read, which is only two things, so it's not a whole lot. I've just absolutely been enthralled with. One of them was a 5-star read last year. You should know who I'm talking about here at this point. And this is a short story collection, so it's not a full novel, unfortunately. I would love to do that. But that is Please Remain Seated by Marcus Cleaver. This is the author of We Used to Live Here and The Caretaker that I read earlier this year. That is currently my book of the year. Like I mentioned, this is a collection of short stories. I believe this is an audio-only collection. I don't know if there's going to be a print run, but when I was looking up this collection, it did mention that this is like an audio short story collection. So I don't know if you're going to be able to physically read it or not, but I love listening to audiobooks. Anyway, so it works out for me. There are 3 short stories in this collection, and I think the audiobook length that I saw on Audible is like 4.5 hours. So it's not super long or anything. 2 of those short stories take place in the Old House universe. If you don't know what that is, basically We Used to Live Here and The Caretaker kind of take place in the same universe, though they're not connected. You don't need to read one to read the other, but if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, there is a lot of connecting and things that you can do on the Old House archive, I believe is the subreddit, and maybe even the website. And then there are also some just like amazing YouTube videos that really delve in and like find all these crazy little details and things and like what is real, what isn't real, how does this play here, and all that kind of stuff. So this is a universe that I'm super enthralled with, an author, and I have just been enjoying so much. And I'll be honest, if this flops, it's just going to kill my mood because I am so excited for this. And short stories have been like an interesting thing for me. I've probably read more short stories this year than I ever have before, and it's definitely something that I have started to enjoy more and more. And I think if anybody's going to do it at the level I want it to be done at, I think Marcus is going to be able to do it. And I try to reel in the hype. I try not to be too hyped up, but like this is my most anticipated release of the second half of the year. The Caretaker was my most anticipated release of the year. So those expectations are very, very high, and hopefully it delivers. I have a feeling it will. He hasn't let me down yet. Like I said, only 2 entries, but 2 extremely strong entries. Then next up, we have another new release, and that is Exit Party by St. John Mandel. There we go. St. John Mandel. I forgot what this one was, but this is a new release. I saw Jimmy from Chatting with Nuts talking about this one. I think this is one he's going to read as well, and I'm going to be joining suit. I believe this takes place in a post-apocalyptic scenario. Basically, there is a civil war in the United States, and the Republic of California has just kind of declared itself. And that's really all I know. I'm so bad about this, but I really try to go into, especially new releases, as knowing as little as possible. When I was Googling, just to like see exactly when it came out and everything. That's all I got from it. I stopped reading it there. To me, that's like a perfect scenario. I'll be curious on how much do we get into like what caused the Civil War, what's the fallout, how much of society is still around. It sounds like it's post-apocalyptic in a sense, but it also sounds if we're having like a country kind of declare itself, like we shouldn't be thrown back into the Stone Age. This shouldn't be like a road situation. It sounds like, technology is probably still somewhat there. There's some kind of, government running things, and how does society come out of that? I'm very interested to see how this one all plays out, and we'll see. I don't think I've ever read anything. Actually, I know I have not read anything by this author before, so I'm looking forward to Exit Party. Then the last new release that I have planned for this month, and technically I think this came out last month, but I just didn't get around to it. I saw a few other people really doing some reviews and reading this one, and that is The Demon Star by Jesse Argong. This is supposed to be a sci fantasy story, and sci fantasy is just kind of like the blending of my 2 favorite genres. And a lot of times it works really, really well. I know this one has to do with like Eldritch horror kind of stuff playing into it. And this is maybe, I don't know if I want to call it like a desolate planet, but like the little bit I read, it seems like, maybe the place this is happening at isn't doing the best. But Eldritch monsters, sci fantasy. And I think this is the start of like a new series, which always, makes me like, should I read it now? Should I wait? But I think it's nice to be a part of the conversation as it is happening. And I know for sure, like at least Preacher Reads has read this, and a few other people, and I think they were mostly positive on it. So I'm really looking forward to it. This is one, the cover of this one is absolutely, stunning. It's one of those ones where like you see the cover and you're like, yeah, that's a cover buy for sure. It just kind of has that like all the red and like the darkness to it kind of gives that like horror-esque element to it, along with knowing, just from reading about it, that it's also like sci fantasy. Those are a lot of things that I like all being mixed together. And sometimes that means it works really, really well. And sometimes that means it doesn't work at all. So we'll see how the Demon Star, comes out this month. And then the last thing that I have planned for the month is this is the only not new release. So it's full of new releases this month. But the last thing I have planned for is Destiny's Conflict by Jenny Wirtz. This is book 10, the penultimate book in the Wars of Light and Shadow. And it's crazy. I think I've said this the last couple of books, but this has been a really long journey. It's been great, doing the read along with everybody, and I'm just really looking forward to it. Obviously, I'm not going to say too much about book 10 of 11 in a series, but we're so close to the end, and I feel like there's a lot to accomplish. This isn't an overly long book. This will be the first one I'm listening to on audio, and I was really like up in the air on if I should or not. I am mostly an audiobook person, and I have this audiobook, but I've read physically this entire series. So, this is one of those ones where if I feel like I'm maybe not connecting with the audiobook, which I've heard it's really well done, but this is a series that, I think maybe reading it could be better. I don't know. I'm kind of playing around. I'll be playing around with that to see, if I feel like I should physically read it, I'll make that switch over. But like I said, book 10, and there's so much left to be done in so little time. I looked at the audiobook. So Songs of the Mystery, the last audiobook, I think it's like a 40-hour long audiobook, or is it 40 or 40? Is it 43 or 34? One of those two. It's pretty long. So between these two, it's like 50 or 60 hours worth of story left on the audio front. So I'm very intrigued to see what happens. There's, like I said, I feel like there's so much that still needs to be finished with not a whole lot of books left. But I'm very excited for it. It is crazy that by the end of this year, I believe, I'll have this series checked off the list. And it's been quite the journey, and we'll see. I have confidence. I've read enough Janny stuff at this point to feel like she's going to be able to land the ship appropriately. And so I'm like eagerly awaiting that to see what happens. This has been such a long journey, and rewarding and challenging, and just like so many different things. It's going to be like a real whirlwind of emotions. But we're not on the last book yet, so I need to just be ready for Destiny's Conflict. And then just like I said, I want to mention some other like maybe stuff. As always, I might throw some comics in here. The Green Lantern show came out. I have a Green Lantern comic graphic novel sitting right here on my shelf that I should probably get around to and read. I wanted to do that before I watch the show, but I don't know if that'll happen. Just a couple other. Return of the Griffin. This is so high up on my TBR, and if it wasn't for all these new releases, it would definitely be on here. So if that one doesn't get started this month, it's definitely going to be on the October TBR. So we're planning a little bit ahead. And speaking of that, do you like when people just do all horror reads in October? I know this is a little bit of a side tangent, but I like horror. I read a little bit of it, but I've never really been one who like all of October I just read horror. But do you like a little bit extra horror in October? I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say. Absalom is another one in there. The Earth is Weeping is another one that might get thrown in there as well. But really, these ones that I mentioned, Destiny's Conflict, The Demon Star, Exit Party, and Please Remain Seated, are going to be the big focuses for this month. As always, I would love to hear what you guys have planned on your TBR, because I get so many great recommendations and everything from just seeing what you guys are reading and putting stuff on my radar. There's some stuff that I don't even know exists until you tell me about it. But that is going to be all for me. And remember to read what you want when you want.